I'm one of those people you would call a keyboard shortcut fanatic. I rarely go to the menu bar unless there's a reason to do so. Having said that, Photoshop will let you configure new keyboard shortcuts for menu items that you frequently use but don't have a built-in shortcut. One of my favorite parts about this is if you're learning to be a power user and you want to get more comfortable with keyboard shortcuts, you can choose from your Edit menu keyboard shortcuts. When I do, there is the Photoshop default set, and before I assign my own shortcut, I'm going to hit Summarize. And I'll go straight to my desktop, and Photoshop will build an HTML or web document that has every shortcut you could possibly need and every shortcut built into the program listed. I'll click Save, and it brings up your default web browser. So if I take a peek here, it's launched Chrome, which is my default browser, and then I can see every shortcut that is built into Photoshop. Now, if you're a Windows user, you'll see that this says Control instead of Command and Alt instead of Option. But if I want to find a faster way to do something like size type, I could choose Edit, Find, and Search or Find, and type from the Department of Redundancy Department. There are 14 instances, so as I go through, I may discover some new keyboard shortcuts. So far, the only one I've hit is horizontal type tool or vertical type tool. They're all the letter T. So, built into Photoshop, there aren't a lot of menu items with type other than the letter T. But let's try something different. Maybe I often use image size. So I'm using Find, which is often Control F on Windows or Command F for Find on the Mac. And I typed image size. And the shortcut to that, I always say it this way, Command Option I, or in Windows Control Alt I, because keyboard shortcuts typically start with Command A is select all. Command Shift A is deselect all. So you start with the Command key as a Mac user, and then you add Option into it or Shift into it to do more. On Windows, Control A is select all. Control Shift A is deselect all. So I kind of memorize them in a linear order, and it makes them easier to commit to memory. I'm going to close these keyboard shortcuts, and I'll show you how I assign my own. There is one tool which had a shortcut in Photoshop years ago that they stole for a new tool that I don't use that often. So instead of messing with the defaults, because maybe someone else is using my machine and they could be alarmed by single letters or things that they are used to hitting not doing what they expect, I'm going to make my own new set. So I went to Edit Keyboard Shortcuts. I'm creating a new set with all of Photoshop's default shortcuts. And I'll just call it Kelly. And it creates a keyboard shortcut file, a .kys for keyboard shortcuts. And you'll see it has to go to a specific location. Do not change this location. That way it's always there every time you launch Photoshop. So when I hit Save, you can reprogram your application menus, your panel menus, again, the panels being the things on the right or your Tools panel, or the tools themselves. And in Tools, they're listed by the order they occur in your Tools panel or toolbar. And the shortcut I want to reassign or steal back is the Blur tool. Years ago, it was the letter R for Blur, but today it is the Rotate View tool, R for Rotate View. I don't use Rotate View as often as I use Blur, so if I scroll down with a few clicks, there is the Blur tool. If I click on it once, I can click in Shortcut and hit the letter R for Blur. And it says, hey, the shortcut R will be removed from Rotate View tool if you accept this. I want to accept it, and I'll just use my mouse to go underneath the hand tool to the rotate view tool when I need that tool. You can do many other things. I often use select, modify, expand. So if I go to application menus, I can expand, not to be redundant, but I can expand the select menu, scroll down, locate, modify, and expand. And it doesn't have a shortcut, and you can use your function keys at this point. On the Mac, F1 is undo, F2 is cut, F3 is copy, F4 is paste. I already have shortcuts for those. On Windows, F1 is reserved for help, so I'm going to make expand F2. And on my Mac, I have to use what I call the frickin' nuisance key, the little FN, because F2 is stolen by the operating system for brightness. Really, technically, it's called the function key, the little FN. And laptop users on both Mac and Windows may have to hit this in order for their function keys to work. The function keys are normally F1 through F12 or F1 through F15 above your numbers on your keyboard. So I'm going to hit the FN key, the function, and F2. And it took F2. It's saying it's already assigned to edit cut, but I can hit a different shortcut for cut. So I'm going to accept it. And now if I click OK, R goes to my blur tool. If I make a selection, either rectangular or elliptical, and click and drag, F2 now brings up select, modify, expand selection. So I'm much more efficient in Photoshop, and I can assign shortcuts for things I use frequently that I used to have to go to menus for. So take a tour through your menus and see if you're a keyboard shortcut person, if there's some items that don't have shortcuts, and assign your own under Edit, Keyboard Shortcuts.